So crypto markets are pumping right now, seeing a big significant jump after a trade deal between the United States and China is starting to look very, very positive. Moving into next week, we have some key news events that are going to really be causing a lot of volatility in the market, and everyone's wondering if we're about to send and break all-time highs or if this is a fake out. There's a lot of perspectives from the bears in terms of the price action we're seeing with Bitcoin on a high time frame, and everyone is honestly still setting up for shorts approaching that 115 to 117,000 region for Bitcoin. Ethereum is also breaking above 4,000 right now, and the next region that we're really focused on breaking is 4,200. If we fail at that next level of resistance, then it's not going to be looking too good for altcoins. But right now, I want to currently walk you through exactly the key news events moving into next week, the price action that we're currently seeing, and exactly what you should be doing if you're investing in altcoins. But if new to my channel, check out the rest of my content. I try to keep you all updated on the day-to-day events, price action on Bitcoin, Ethereum, altcoins, how liquidity is shifting, and everything you need to be aware of. In my most recent video, I talked about exactly if you should be buying altcoins right now and the perspectives in the market, and a few other videos just keeping you updated on what is going on and how to navigate. As I said, key news events are happening this week, which is going to be causing a lot of volatility with Fed week and the talks about rate cuts. So with all that being said, let's go and jump straight into the perspectives of the bears, the bulls, and what you need to be aware of. So as I said, guys, overnight, we saw some significant jumps in the market. Bitcoin reclaiming that 113,000 zone, and then Ethereum breaking back above 4,000. Altcoins are seeing green as well, just depending on the assets that you are invested in. Now, in terms of Bitcoin and Ethereum, we were pretty much keeping up with this range that we were seeing on the 4-hour, which was letting us know that we were pretty much still in a downward trajectory, but we were pretty much seeing that we were testing different areas of resistance, and now we are starting to break above. And this is where everyone's wondering, is Bitcoin still going to be having the energy to, pop back up to that 115, 117,000 region, breaking previous resistance and currently the resistance that we're seeing right now. There is a big CME gap right here, guys. It just shows that there's liquidity just sitting right here. But at the end of the day, we won't know until we move into the start of the week. Now, Ethereum is also doing some similar moves to Bitcoin. It was ranging, staying in this downward price action, but now you can see that we are starting to break above, and this is where everyone's starting to get super bullish, especially with a lot of the imbalances that we're seeing across the market. Altcoins have been seeing a jump up as Ethereum has been pumping up. As soon as Ethereum can break that 5,000 region, guys, we've been talking about it, altcoin season is more than likely going to be initiated. But right now, it is pretty much just following the price action around Ethereum, waiting to see exactly what Ethereum's next step is going to be. Bitcoin dominance has been on a gradual increase in terms of, we look at the high time frame, because this is the hourly time frame. You can see a downward break in terms of that price action, and right here on the 4-hour, you can see how we have been consecutively somewhat in an uptrend moving forward. And this is where everyone's wondering if this is still going to be the continuation and breakdown of Bitcoin dominance, or if we're still going to be reclaiming other zones. We talked about this in another post with another individual, which was really great, that just showed the correlation with Bitcoin dominance and overall how liquidity starts to pour into altcoins. So if you didn't watch my previous videos, go watch those videos, guys. We talk about all the in-depth analysis and price action around Bitcoin, Ethereum, and exactly those zones that we're looking at. Now, in terms of why everything is pumping, why is everything just starting to see green? Well, breaking, China's Vice Minister of Commerce says the US and China have reached a consensus on key trade issues after a candid and constructive talk. Discussions covered export controls, tariff suspensions, fentanyl-related measures, and more. Both sides will now begin internal approval procedures. So as soon as this happened, this caused investor sentiment to just shoot through the roof. Everyone starts feeling bullish because there is less uncertainty in the market. If we can see a trade deal, we start to see less easing and all of this, complications with tariffs and all of the money that's being spent. Investors are going to want to invest back into the markets. Now, jumping more into it, breaking, President Trump eyes U.S.-China trade deal after reaching early consensus in trade talks. Textbook execution step number 10 in their tariff, plan and what they're anticipating. Now, moving more into it, you can see breaking U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent says China is ready to make a trade deal with the U.S. after 2 days of negotiations. Bessent says the agreement will remove President Trump's 100% tariff set to go live on November 1st. We're approaching that, guys. So if a trade deal does not go in, it is going to be bad. It is going to be nasty. And I'm going to lead you guys back to this video. But if we see a trade deal go through, it could look really bullish and we could be breaking those all-time highs, or previous resistance at least first. Now, going more into it, China is delaying its recent export controls on rare earths to the US by 12 months to re-examine the plan. So we need to really look into that. And then from here, this is pretty much the sum up as to why the market started pumping very significantly. So investors are waking up to some huge news from China. A trade deal is coming. China's Vice Minister of Commerce just announced that the US and China reached a consensus on key trade issues. This includes export controls, tariff suspensions, fentanyl-related measures, anti-drug cooperation, trade expansion, in the U.S. Section 301 fees. On top of this, U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent says China is ready to make a trade deal with the U.S. after 2 days of negotiations. I know we just said all this. Bessent has added that China wants to make a substantial U.S. soybean purchases, which is going to be looking good for the markets. All while President Trump says he is hoping for a complete deal with China this week. As we said on October 10th, President Trump's 100% tariffs on China is very likely not to go into effect. We believe a trade deal is imminent. And then sum it all up, this week is going to be action-packed as the government shutdown nears day 30, guys, because the government's been shut down. We covered it multiple different times. The Fed will release their interest rate decision on Wednesday. We will then hear from the Fed Chair Powell in a highly anticipated statement amid the data blackout. On top of this, Microsoft, Google, Meta, Apple, and Amazon will be reporting their earnings. That's earnings for $15.2 trillion in market cap, worth of big tech stocks. All while President Trump meets with China President Xi on Thursday, 48 hours before his 100% tariff is set to go live. Buckle up, it's going to be a wild week. And this is why I tell you guys to keep up with not only the price action, but also the global economic events and how they have an effect on the market. This is something that I've been preaching on my channel for the past month or so, to just keep up with multiple different areas of information. And honestly, if we see a trade deal, it's going to look good. But if we don't see a trade deal, expect even crazier volatility, especially with Fed week happening this week. Now, there's a lot of anticipation around the buying price action with Bitcoin. And right now, a lot of people are starting to get super bullish, anticipating that we're going to be seeing some crazy returns in the next few days. Crypto Mitchell is talking about exactly the upward price action that we were seeing with altcoins. And he goes on to say how more than likely this is manipulation that's taking place, and it is market manipulation, which is why some people are still anticipating that deviations could take place. Now, it's not a coincidence, right? The markets have the heaviest liquidation ever on Binance days before CZ gets pardoned by Trump, and probably weeks before Binance is operating in the US again. And then out of nowhere, altcoins are surging massively. Very happy that there's no manipulation in the markets. There's manipulation taking place, which is why you shouldn't just get super euphoric over the green. You need to understand why the green is taking place in the market. Now, going more in depth in terms of the price action we're seeing around Bitcoin and the shorts and the bearish takes on the market. Now, KillXBT is one individual that keeps us updated on the weekly openings for Bitcoin, monthly openings, specific gaps in terms of liquidity, and where we're headed based off of a macro lens with Bitcoin and also a high time frame with Bitcoin. This is why we anticipate that even whenever we see upward price action, we could still be seeing deviations because we're testing specific regions. Now, jumping more into it, KillXBT shared a great post talking about exactly his short position and how he's setting up. So Bitcoin started to gradually build into a short at 113.8K. He started to build into a short, looking for ads up to 115.9K with a stop loss in image as invalidation. As it's the weekend, the first scale will be smaller and second scale bigger. Targets in his image with these arrows and exactly where he's anticipating. Now he clarifies it up by saying, I want to clarify why I'm starting to build my position slightly earlier, around 1 to 2%. My CPI and FOMC pivot alignments, which is the data that we saw, guys, in the previous week, which caused a lot of fluctuations. Going into it, the CPI and FOMC pivot alignments indicate a high statistical probability of a reversal toward the CME gap. And this is where I told you guys, CME gap, area of liquidity, where we open up, where we close. While I do expect an eventual move to the 115 to 116K area, I believe that level will likely act as a deviation wick that quickly retraces. So like how I said, approaching that 115 to 116K region, he's expecting that we're going to retrace quite quickly. I'm not concerned with any trade-related news between the United States and China, as those headlines and outcomes are already priced in. The weekend move up was clearly engineered. Thin books, this is a manipulation we're talking about, and low liquidity made it an ideal time to push price higher. It's also worth noting that over the last 180 days, every weekend CME gap has been filled within the first week of the new weekly opening. And this is why I keep you guys updated on a week-to-week basis. Out of roughly 28 to 30 CME gaps, only two of them took 2 weeks to close. That gives a very high probability of the current gap being filled next week, especially when combined with my other confluences, hence why I'm building early. My initial entry is small since this is just a weekend position build. We could see a Monday high form during the London or New York session, which is why we're anticipating upward price action opening the week around the 114 to 115K region. If you prefer a safer approach, waiting for that area would make sense. So if you want to short the market, wait to approach that 115 to 116,000 region and then start to enter. But everyone is starting to enter already, just in case we start to see quick invalidation, and then from there you need to already be positioned. But this is a great stance and a great perspective on exactly why he is short on a macro lens. I try to give you guys this perspective just because even though we might open up green tomorrow, deviations are still expected. So look at these ranges, keep up to date with all of this, and just take your perspective and take this all with a grain of salt. Now, moving into Dr. Profit's bearish perspective, he is another individual that has been super bearish, calling for the top for Bitcoin and saying that everything is going to start crashing down. And he goes on to talk about exactly how he's positioning in this. And I think this is very valid, just so you can have an understanding of someone that has been correct about these deviations and what he is currently doing and what he's expecting. Now, Bitcoin, in last week's Sunday report, which he shares every Sunday, he shared this chart with you and told you if the market allows to visit 116 to 117,200 region, he will be adding to the existing short positions. Nothing changed in his strategy. This is why a new Sunday report is not required today. And it's because he's expecting some manipulation in the markets, upward price action, and then deviating once we approach that 115 to 116,000 zone. And this is crazy because not only one individual is saying it, another individual is saying it, and they give you their breakdown on exactly why they believe this is going to be taking place. If you look at this information and you just don't care about it, this is where you are probably going to make mistakes. Buy whenever you probably shouldn't be buying, get liquidated because you're not keeping up with how everything is moving, and it's super important. And that's why I don't really feel, bad for anyone that doesn't keep up with this information. If you don't keep up with it, you're going to get wrecked. I'll get wrecked if I don't keep up with this information. And this is why the markets and the crypto are not meant for everyone. Keep up with this information, expect deviations, and understand what is expected moving into next week. Now, markets, as I said, are seeing some green after the trade deal is, being talked about, and how more than likely we're going to be seeing it before the 30th, which is going to already be this week. And the Fed is going to be determining rate cuts, interest rates, all these different things that are going to be going on, guys. And as a result, we are starting to see a lot of people front run the market. Altcoins right now are also seeing some green because Ethereum is starting to pump up. And this is where a lot of people right now, I know a lot of people right now are starting to buy into the markets. Everyone is starting to allocate into their positions. Why? Because we're starting to see green around Ethereum. Everyone thinks we're about to send, but just a news flash, this has happened already for about 2 to 3 weeks. And we're honestly approaching a key news event that is going to be happening with China and the US and Fed week. So volatility this week is going to be crazy. The manipulation is going to be crazy. And this is why I try to show you the key news events that are happening and overall the perspectives around, the bearish perspectives, the bullish perspectives, and what you should be doing. But overall, if you're new to my channel, check out the rest of my content. I try to keep you all updated on the day-to-day events, price action on Bitcoin, Ethereum, altcoins, how liquidity is shifting, and everything you need to be aware of on a day-to-day to a week-to-week basis, moving into a monthly basis, guys. I try to share a different perspective on the channel, showing you all the different takes and then giving you my perspective on the markets, not just preaching you my narrative and just, trying to get you to sway in one direction. I think the markets are going to be seeing altcoin season, but not until we start to test these specific regions and see if we're going to deviate or if we're going to break through. I am honestly expecting that we're going to be seeing deviations. I don't think we're going to be seeing a breakthrough, but I am going to be setting my stop losses on my shorts just so if I do get invalidated, I pretty much don't lose everything. And that's what you should be doing too. So if you're new to the channel, drop me a comment, like, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of my content. Let me know what you think of my perspective on the markets. Let me know if you think everything's gonna be pumping, sending to Valhalla, or if you think it's a fake out and we're gonna be dumping. Love to hear everyone's perspective. How's your altcoin portfolio doing? Let me know everything down in the comments. Do not capitulate your bags. Expect volatility moving into tomorrow when the week opens. And hopefully guys, I catch you in the next one. Peace.